Hello and welcome to All Four Wins Football, and it is a Lower League Lingo episode 5. I run out of fingers now, so I won't be able to do that again. But we are in a great situation. We're 5 weeks in. It's nearly creeping towards the end of September, and still there are lots and lots of games for us to get our teeth into and enjoy. As ever, I am surrounded by people that know way more about football than me and make me look good every single week. And here they are. Mr. Foster, how the devil are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. How are you, Barry?
Tired today, mate. Today is not the one. It's a tricky Tuesday, tricky tired Tuesday. Nice bit of alliteration there, which Gareth will appreciate. But onwards we move. It's always a pleasure to talk about women's football. And Gareth, for you as well, how are you? All right?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. Good to be back. Enjoyed being live last week.
Yes, that was different, wasn't it? It's a very different animal going on this when it's live and when it's recording. So it's a very different vibe. But we've managed to do them all in one take so far without requiring any editing. So today will be the day, I am sure. I haven't got to do the editing. That's a Connor job. So all is well. So, good stuff. Right. It's that moment where I have to talk aimlessly whilst also trying to click the correct buttons to make sure that what we want to come up is what comes up. And it's not gonna because I haven't clicked on the thing. Yes, I have. All is well. It's not going well. It's a bad start for Barry, but never mind. It's coming to up. There we go. It wasn't on there before. And now we should be able to see the screen. Yes, we can. And as you can see, as ever, we are starting from the north. And that will be the mighty Wolves against the mighty Hull City. Now, it's a northern one, but it involves a Midlands team. So where are we going? Are we going to John? Are we going to Gareth? I wish I could remember. I feel like this was a Gareth shout. It was a John.
It was not. It was a John shout.
There we go then. Go on then, John. Talk to me about
I know it can be tricky when it's not Stourbridge or Kidderminster to figure out who John's games are. But yeah, this one's a John game.
Absolutely. See, because you guys always pick things from the Northern Premier if it's going to be there. So I have to try and split the Northern Premier into a Midlands Northern sort of derby. Everyone just leaves the Southern stuff for the really. It's great. Go on, John. Northern Premier, Wolves. What's so exciting about this game?
I was going to actually surprise you and go for a Southern game, Cheltenham and hashtag, but no, I left that one away, unfortunately, because I didn't want to confuse things even more than it is now. Yeah, Wolves for Hull 0 league game. So Hull went into this game having lost against Burnley and Forest, lost in the cup against Stoke. So you think momentum-wise, it wasn't quite there. However, they're now sitting third in the league, which is fantastic when you look at that. Their win came against Derby and Stourbridge. So I think what it shows is that how good and competitive this league is. That you literally 1 week can change a hell of a lot, and I think we saw that when the likes of Forest dropped points, Burnley dropped points, and Rugby all throughout the season. It's really opened things up. Wolves' next game is against Stoke, so. That can really open things up even more. Hull obviously came into this game a little bit different. Was ninth in the league, not having much momentum. Just one league win against Stourbridge. So yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting one. It's one that you'd expect Wolves to win. Wolves had an unchanged side, which I thought is always interesting. It always excites me when a team keep the same side, because I don't think you see too much of it these days. I think Wolves have pretty much found their strongest starting 11 and realised as long as they play at their best, this is a game that they would win. And they did. Amber Hughes getting on the score sheet twice. I know you've got that written there. Two very similar goals, both crosses and both headers from the crosses. It looks quite simple, to be honest. Playing out from the back on the first one, went out to the left wing, right-footed cross and a header, and it looked like it was a little bit too simple, a little bit more awkward. The second header, at least it was challenged, but still looked like a tap-in kind of header on the second one. And then Beth Merrick with the other goal that I've seen. I haven't seen the own goal, so I can't comment on that one, I'm afraid. But the Beth Merrick goal was different. It was Wolves intercepting, getting the ball in the centre circle. playing a through ball to Beth Berwick, and she just taps it home. Fantastic players getting on the score sheet. Dan McNamara at the end of the game was interviewed, and his interview is on Twitter, so you can probably see it on there and probably elsewhere as well. And he just went on to turn around. He just went on and said, like, he dominated the ball. The structure was really good, and he was happy with the possession. But what took my eye the most was how he spoke about it's not just the goal scorers, it's the people that you don't see. As fans, we always watch the ball. Well, I do. I'm not a coach. I don't look off the ball. You know, if I'm watching a football match, I'm just watching where the ball goes. And if I'm watching on TV, you know, you're pretty limited to where you can watch. But it was highlighting all the off-ball kind of movements, which I thought was really good. It does go unnoticed. So as the likes of Amber was getting the plaudits, he was recognising others as well. Chris Holmes, the Hull manager, just said it was a tough game, as you'd expect. When it was 2-0 down, there was a potential penalty shout, which could have made it 2-1 if that had scored and if it was given. And it didn't. It wasn't a goal. So, so it's ended 4-0. So now Hull are 9th. And the two teams below them, or two of the three teams below them, play each other next week. So they'll have one eye open on that game. They're at the bottom of the league.
Gareth, just to confirm, he did disappear there briefly for you as well, didn't he?
Disappeared briefly for me as well.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. It happens every once in a while. He just carried on as if there was nothing wrong.
Sorry. I didn't realise. Sorry. Yeah.
Not a problem. I don't think you knew you'd gone, to be fair. But there we go. You're not wrong. Some great stuff there, John. And again, we have another game from the Northern Premier, and this one is definitely from Gareth. I remember that. I'm sure it is.
You are correct. Yeah.
There we go. I knew one you were. So talk to us. Derby 0, Liverpool Fed 6.
Yeah. So I remember saying at the beginning of the season that Feds are an interesting club because they don't have a huge amount of backing in terms of there being a men's side at all. So in terms of kind of finances, it's very much what they can generate themselves. And for them being where they are in tier 3 is really impressive. And I mentioned about them being the best of the rest, aside from those kind of top 4 sides that I think will vie kind of for the title, at least in the early stages. And this game just felt like a massive kind of marker laid down for the rest of the league that, the Feds are not a side to be underestimated. They're a side that have only been in the league for 2 years, 3. I think this is their 3rd season there, and they've absolutely taken to it. They've recruited really well. I think they benefit from being the only kind of Merseyside-based club at that level. And they've taken to it like a duck to water. This is a massive result. This is a record-breaking result for them. They said on Twitter that it's a record-breaking result. I'm a little bit unsure exactly what the record is. I assume it's the biggest winning margin they've had at this level. And, not long ago, Derby were a side that were up there around the top of the table. And for Feds to go down to Derby and, put 6 past them on their own turf is huge. And I think I mentioned last week, didn't I, about I don't want to see a women's football pyramid that is essentially a mirror image of the men's football pyramid. And teams like Feds, Rugby Borough as well, Durham, Lewis, etc., are London City Lionesses are crucial to that. And so for Feds to get a result like this is massive. I also live in Liverpool, so I think it's great to have a little bit of Scouse representation here as well. And yeah, I think they're a good club doing things the right way, and it's good to see them getting results over what people would expect to be the top names in that division.
Absolutely, and as you can see, an absolute battering in the second half. Though there's obviously a reasonably even first half, but the second half, Liverpool Feds absolutely came out of their shell, and it did this to the table. Nottingham Forest drew 1-1 with Burnley, which was enough for them to maintain their position at the top of the league. Rugby Borough beat West Bromwich Albion 5-0, which meant they pulled back to within a point of Nottingham Forest. Wolves obviously moved to third with the win that John was talking about earlier on. And they are your three sort of big teams that are really tight and close. Burnley, Liverpool, Feds getting themselves into the mix as well. Stourbridge and Sporting Cowes are still at the bottom, but 10th, 11th and 12th, to include Halifax in that, did not play a game this weekend, and so therefore didn't really have much of an opportunity to change their fortunes. So I'm sure that as the weeks go by, they will have that opportunity. So there's your Northern Premier, and now it's down to me.
Sorry, Barry.
Sorry, go on. I'm not
Just
looking at you.
2 seconds on the league table in general. What I like about the league so far in terms of its competitiveness is you've got first and fifth separated by one result. So in 1 week, that top three can all change. You've got 9th to 12th separated by one result. If Halifax, Stourbridge, Calcer, get some results in their kind of games in hand, that can all change. We said it before, 5 games doesn't seem like an awful lot on paper, but it's pushing 25% of the season. And no one really has pulled away from anywhere else. Everyone seems to be keeping pace with everybody, whether that's those that are kind of scrapping for relegation, those that are scrapping for the title, or those that are just vying to be really solidly placed and out of danger throughout the whole season. So it's been interesting to follow, and I think it will be to push on as well.
For sure. I mean, you mentioned the ones in the middle there, even West Brom and Derby, they've basically got to make a decision, haven't they? Are they going to put a little run together and maybe trouble the top few? Or are they going to just maintain sort of a middle position? Or will, of course, they eventually get dragged into the mire of the bottom along with the other two? Who knows? Not me, but we will find out as the weeks go by. Well, I chose this week to concentrate solely on the Southern Premier because I found that two of the results in their opposite ends of the table really stood out to me. And this was a big one because I don't think anybody expected Oxford United to come out in this game against Exeter City and win the game 3-0. But they did. Took them right towards the end. Phoebe Paul with a couple there and Adele Lindbergh as well, getting the goals. But what was interesting about this is that obviously Exeter were top of the table when the weekend started. Now, Ipswich didn't even play, and they have moved to the top of the table, and they've done that purely on this result. So Exeter are obviously top by goal difference, but by conceding that third goal, especially there from Adele Lindbeck, it puts them in a real situation because now they've dropped down on goal difference, and Ipswich will have that opportunity to pull away from the pack, as you'll see from the table when we get to it. But also the thing that was interesting about that is that for Oxford, that was a massive win because they were stuck on 7 points. They're now on 10 points as well. So with Gareth talking about how the Northern Premier looks, the Southern Premier is, I would argue, possibly even more exciting at this moment in time for a very similar reason. So that was the first reason I wanted to highlight this particular fixture because, again, Exeter were doing incredibly well up there fighting. You would have expected Exeter to take the bull by the horns, literally in this picture, and to win it. That's brilliant. I didn't realise Oxford had the ball one there. That was brilliant. But if they'd have done that, they'd have been top of the table, 3 points clear. And with Ipswich not playing, you always want the points on the board. I think with this one now, the fact that they've been defeated and now Ipswich, it's a sort of advantage them. And we could be looking at Ipswich, which I know Gareth mentioned earlier on in the season, really looking like they could be contenders for the Southern Premier. So that was the first one that got me. And then as I was searching around for a second one, I chose this one. And anyone that is an avid watcher of the show will know that I've really been trying to keep an eye on MK Dons. Stevenage played them in a pre-season friendly, and I said even last week, they've got to get up to the pace of the league, because if they don't, they're going to struggle. And it could be that the MK Dons would drop down. And then here we go. What a game this ended up being. The girls of MK Dons didn't give up. They fought really, really hard. And in front of an attendance of 600 people at MK Dons proper stadium, what a game we have seen there. Billericay taking the lead, obviously, with Nia Evans there, and then scoring a second one, Bonnie Hall, with 19 minutes. And what I think is vital about these sorts of matches is if you're at the bottom of the league and things start going against you, it's really hard, actually, to find that within you, to pull it back, and you'd be forgiven. I mentioned, and we did an interview with Alec Marsh from Kings Lynn on this channel. A horrific season for them. They didn't win a game all season. I think they only scored about 5 or 6 goals. They conceded 100 plus. It was a horrific season for them. So many problems going on behind the scenes without the players. And it's got to be soul destroying to be in that situation where you're losing consistently, conceding consistently. And at 2-0, 20 minutes in, you'd be forgiven for sitting there and going, well, here we go again. But they didn't. They fought back. And Sydney Wootton there, a couple of goals in just a couple of minutes. And all of a sudden, you've gone from being 2-0 down to level. And again, you get into the second half. Valentine Percy scores. And they're behind again. And you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, we've given it a good go. But they didn't. 15 minutes to go. And Annalise Jacovides comes in and gets a goal and levels it up. And I just think the story around this, for me, is brilliant, because it's showing a side that are not just going to give up. They're not just going to be the whipping team. They're not going to be the ones that get beaten week in, week out without a fight. And it's exactly what we said last week they needed to do. So really, really impressed by MK Dons. The minute I saw they had taken the point and held off the challenger Billericay, who from a flip side would be looking at this match and saying twice we should have won this game and twice we didn't. It's very much conflicting fortunes for the pair, but for me, absolutely massive. And when you look at the league table, what it's done to it, it's crazy. I mean, just look at that. It's absolutely mad. So you've got 4 teams at the top, all with 10 points, which in itself is crazy. Only 4 goals between them. Hashtag an Oxford on exactly the same amount as it stands. And then even behind that, you've got Watford, Cheltenham and Billericay, all just 3 points behind those top 4. And it's so evenly spaced. MK Don's obviously not necessarily going to be the ones to jump, but you go to 11th, Lewis with their 3 points, a win takes them up to 8th. They're only a couple of wins away from being in a position where you could be fighting for the title. So when we start talking about the sort of matches that we want to bring in and show on this channel, this is why we're doing it, because these stories would just fly under the radar and nobody would ever notice it. But when you see these things growing over the course of a season, it gets you excited. And I'm tired of just hearing about how exciting the Championship is, when actually all of these other leagues below, they're really exciting more often than not. It's rare that you get a club that just runs away with it without there being other stories. So love that. Brilliant from MK Dons. Well done. And now all of a sudden, a win next week or next time could put them out of the relegation zone. So brilliant stuff there. I need a drink now because I've been speaking for far too long. So we have got John, who is going to be back in with this one. As you can see, it's just a small game to talk about, but it's not a league game. It was another one of the cup matches in the preliminary round of the WNL Cup. Bolby St Michael's, just a 9 being scored there. Talk to us a little bit about this game, John. Why did you choose this cup match? What was it in particular, apart from the fact that it's almost a cricket score? What was it about this that caught your eye?
It's hard not to choose this one when you look at it. Obviously, I was at this game, I was at another game, but you know, when you look at the results from the weekend, and it's hard not to give Bolmere this bit of a shout out. Yes, it's the preliminary round for the plate. So if anyone's new watching this channel, and they're wondering what the plate is, what the cup is. It's basically, if you lost the determining round, then you would go into the plate as opposed to the cup. And the preliminary round is because there were so many teams to make up an even number. Obviously, some teams had a bye and some had a preliminary round. So that's where this is, and that's what this game is. There's two teams that play in the same league. And if I'm honest, it kind of surprised me. I think, Bournemouth have got off to a poor start in my eyes in regards to league position. And I think what this does is it shows that what Bournemouth can do. They definitely utilised the squad. Three of their goals came off the bench. They didn't start with Anna Wilcox. She started on the bench. She's massive. She's one of their best players, captain as well. So for her not to be starting and still getting a 9-1 victory is huge. Lincoln, on the other hand, finished mid-table in the league last year and had a bit of a poor summer. What it looks like was a poor summer anyway. A lot of players leaving. I would probably call it more of a restructure or something, doing something slightly different with the coaching staff as well. And unfortunately, it's showing this year. Lincoln are at bottom of the league. Bournemouth are just outside of the relegation area. But the Bournemouth will probably shoot up. And it looks like Lincoln United are actually higher up and doing better than Lincoln City, whereas last year they weren't even in the same league. So, so I had to give them a shout out. There's not much information on Twitter or anywhere else, so I've only got the same information that you guys can access on FA full time. But instead of talking about the game, I will just open up a couple of conversations regarding the plate. So now that you've got some of these big clubs in there, for example, your academies, your Manchester academies, Leicester, all the rest of them. I'll just open it up to you guys just for a couple of minutes, just to get your view. Now that there's prize money in this cup, I won't say it's a good thing or is it a bad thing, but you'll have some teams who really need that prize money, and all of a sudden you've got some of the big clubs like your Manchester Uniteds now being able to win just a few hundred or a couple of grand that some of the smaller clubs would really benefit from. So I just thought I'd open that up because there's not much information on the match. Just a couple of minutes each. Just your thoughts on that.
So,
go on, guys. John's gone back to being a host. I love it. Go for it.
Yeah. So I will say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and I think it is overwhelmingly an atrocious decision. I'm not going to sit on the fence. I think it's awful. I think it's awful for the EFL Cup in the men's game. I think it's awful for this one as well. I think we've seen this weekend just gone with that first round of the plate, how seriously those academies are taking it, when 7 of them have been eliminated. Granted, some of them were drawn against each other, but I think 7 have already been eliminated, and Arsenal and Sheffield gave home walkovers to whoever they played. So 7 are out. 2 of them didn't even bother to play their game. For whatever reason, I think it's already a failed experiment. I don't quite know what the National League were trying to do, but I think it's a farce. I think it belittles the experience for, like you say, clubs that could really do with that extra prize money, for players that have the opportunity to qualify and play in a cup final. These teams are not going to go deep in the FA Cup, or they're not going to ever risk getting to play in the FA Cup final. So for there to be a competition where those, not even necessarily lesser sides, but for there to be 2 bites at the cherry for National League teams to reach a cup final, that's huge. And I think if you ask players that have been involved in those cup finals, whether that be the National League Cup, National League Plate, they played at big grounds. It was played at Luton, wasn't it, last season? That's a huge opportunity. And I don't think that's an opportunity that the academies
Is it me?
but I don't think it's one for the National League to deal with at all.
Lovely stuff. I was a bit worried there that you'd gone for good, Gareth, but you're back. It's okay.
Oh,
all is well.
out,
right at the end there, just the last little bit, but it's all good. Oh, it's all happening tonight, isn't it? Goodness me. It's almost like a proper All 4 show. You know what, John? I'm not sure how I feel about it. is the honest answer. I try and look at everything from the totality of football. I think people in the WSL can often look at it too much from what benefits the top teams, and people that are lower down obviously want to see what's going on at grassroots and a bit higher. And it's very interesting. I can see the logic in some respects. So you're talking about wanting to get prize money into it. We've seen already. I mean, this one they didn't even write down how many people had attended this particular match. You look at when you go lower down, the availability of information across from Championship below is really difficult sometimes to get information. Some people might not put theirs up till Tuesday. There's not the urgency to get that information out there. So when you get channels like this that are trying their hardest to highlight these games and highlight these leagues and get people interested and, you know, give shout outs to people that are actually working incredibly hard throughout the leagues, you're going to want people to come and watch it. Now, the greatest of possible respect, it's not easy. You're looking at this one here, you know, you've got Boldmere St Michael's against Lincoln United. We don't know how many people came to this, but if you had Boldmere St Michael's against Manchester United Academy, Boldmere St Michael's against Arsenal Academy, I could see the logic with that, because all of a sudden people are thinking, well, I'm an Arsenal fan maybe, so I might want to go and watch that. So logically, I can see how people have sat in a room and said, how can we get more people to attend this, which therefore will give more money and all. I can see that. There's logic to that. But Gareth's saying completely right. One of the teams I'm going to talk about in terms of the likes of AFC Wimbledon, they were the team that played Arsenal Academy. It's just a home walkover. What's the point? When we do these things where we constantly have games that are just home walkovers, it happens in the cups, especially county cups across the nation. So many people just go, yeah, home walkover. And they're so pointless because they do devalue the cup. You know, you could technically have a whole bunch of home walkovers and then be in a situation where you win a cup having played 2 games, where the team you're playing against has won every game since the very beginning of the competition, and it doesn't really seem right. And so in that respect, I think Gareth's completely correct. So I can kind of see it. You want that middle ground. It's a bit like that horrible thing with the Conti Cup and how that works. To me, it's the way in which they've tried to do it that's gone wrong, as opposed to the actual idea. Because when you look at the money that's being put out there for the WNL, it's not the biggest amount of money you're going to see. It doesn't compare really to the FA Cup, but they're trying. And I think that's to be applauded. You've got to try things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I can also see it. You'd like to see it from the big team's point of view, that actually getting the academies in to have these sorts of matches should be helpful. And that should then also give these other teams, your Boldmeres, people like that, the opportunity to see what levels they've got to try and reach in order to get further in the game. So again, there's logic there. I can see it, but I don't quite think they found the winning formula for it just yet. And it might take a couple of years to sort that out and a little bit of tinkering. Might have to do a bit of Claudio Ranieri, but they might get there. So it's one of those really. But I can see why Gareth's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan in the men's game either. But I think they found that middle ground there, and I think with the I don't even know who the sponsor of the EFL Cup is now, but that's it. That doesn't ever really seem to impact upon the EFL sides. I think actually the attendances for those under 21s games in the EFL Cup are generally lower than otherwise. But yeah, I think it's a tricky one. You know, you want your academies to play competitive football that's going to get them ready for senior football, but is it going to be this cup competition? I don't know. I think,
and that's where it goes wrong, because playing a team in the WNL Northern Premier is still, in some respects, vastly different to playing against a team in the Championship, which is still, in some respects, vastly different to playing a side in the WSL. So, are they gaining the level of experience they would require in order to bridge that gap between being an academy side and playing for the first team? I don't know that they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, good topic point, John. Well done. It's a good job we're not trying to do a short show at any point. I'm joking. It's good stuff. But it does lead us back to Gareth. Obviously, there's no league to look at because it was a cup match. So there's no leagues in a cup, in case you weren't sure, unless it's the Conti Cup, in which case they magically appear again. So this is a good one. Now, I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm genuinely not. I haven't written 0 as if I'm trying to say who'd want to go and watch FC United and Manchester. That's genuinely what it says on full time. The attendance
It was
on
123.
full-time says it. There you go. So 123 is the actual attendance, but on full time, nobody was there. It was behind closed doors, apparently. So there we go. So that's why I wrote 0, because that's what it said, and that's why there's a question mark. So I'm not being funny, but again, can we normalise putting the stuff on full time so that people can actually throw your information out there and make it bigger? But FC United Manchester 1 and Wythenshawe 5. Quite a win. I know you've got a bit of experience, not just in this league, but with this match in general. Tell us a bit about why this game caught your eye.
Yeah, I mean, it was wet. It was a really wet game. It absolutely lashed it down. This game meant, I think this game meant a lot to a lot of people. For some context, at the beginning of last season, the manager and a lot of the staff left FC United and went over to Wythenshawe FC, myself included, and it wasn't necessarily the nicest of exits for a lot of people um, from the club. Now the fans were great, and a lot of the support from fans at the game on Sunday was really nice. There was a lot of girls that played a lot of games for FC United in that game, going back as an away team, and it was odd for me, who made that drive 3 times a week for 18 months. That felt a bit odd for me driving into Broadhurst Park on Sunday. So it must have felt really strange for the people that had been there for longer. And it was a game that when the fixtures came out at the start of the season, we looked at it, and I'm sure FC would have looked at it as well. I'm sure their fans would have looked at it. Ours did. Ours being Wythenshawe. And yeah, it meant a lot to a lot of people, but ultimately 3 points is 3 points regardless of who the opposition is. So it was a great, I think it was a good performance from us. The conditions were difficult, like I mentioned. It rained a lot. There was lots of water kind of falling from the sky. We started really strongly, and for Ellie played with us at FC United when we were there. And I think that's her first goal since kind of signing for us at the start of this season at Wythenshawe. Kirsty was captain at FC, I think, for 10 of her 11 years there, scoring a trademark free kick. And it was nice that was applauded and recognised by the FC fans. That was really nice. And Beth played for FC as well. So kind of heading in at half-time, 3-1 up, with 3 scorers being former FC players, was a bit surreal. FC's goal was a penalty. I didn't get a great view of the penalty. I'm going to go Arsene Wenger on that one. But whether or not it was a foul, possibly it looked a bit soft for me, but probably a foul. Isabella Kershaw's penalty was an absolute rocket into the roof of the net. Like, I don't think anybody was saving that penalty. It was a quality penalty. Going into 3-1 at half time, it felt like the next goal was important. We needed to kind of keep going, and we did. And Kira with 2 second half goals, as a left back playing further forward, is quality. I'm trying to avoid talking about Wythenshawe where I can, and I want to try and shine a light on other teams. I don't want to feel like I'm talking about myself a lot. But yeah, it's it's a great club, and I had a great time when I was at FC as well. So, yeah, it was a great match to be a part of, and a fantastic 3 points for us.
Absolutely. Honestly, the way you talk about that, and John obviously talking about his changes of clubs, it's like an episode of Love Island. It really is. The amount of people at lower levels that go wandering off, and in everywhere, we see that, and they always stay within the region. That's the thing about these regional things. So you always see them dotted about. Oh, you was at that club the other day. Oh, honestly, it is. So yeah, all very Love Islandy, and then there's just me, just sat here, loyally
Loyal,
committed to my
exactly,
Steelers.
just loyal.
Shall not leave them unless they want me to go. But I can also say the joy that I got from writing the name Ellie Kelly was second to none. Absolutely loved that. I had a brief moment where it reminded me of someone in WWE called Kelly Kelly. And I love it. I love names that rhyme. It's superb. So I genuinely enjoyed that. No shade, genuine. Really enjoyed that.
I did
go on.
worry for a while though, Barry, because I didn't put the info on full time until about 4:30 this afternoon. So there was a chance during today, while we've been talking about people not putting information on until Tuesday, where I thought I was going to get publicly shamed here.
Well, do you know what? It's a good job that I didn't manage to get around to doing this particular graphic until 6 o'clock then, really, wasn't it? So if I'd have tried to do that this morning, I'd have been like, Gazza, what's going on? This is outrageous. You picked it and all. But there's your league, and actually, it's a very pleasing one for you, I'm sure. We talk about being 25% of the way through the season. You're not kidding. Pretty much every club, with the exception of Darwin FC there, have evolved into the plus 25% mark, all past the 5-game mark or on it. So very good there. Wytheshawe looking good, unbeaten and on 16 points. Darwin, however, with their only 100% record as it stands, winning all 4 of their games. Curzon Ashton sandwiched in between and still sitting at the bottom in 11th place is West Didsbury, and I still haven't changed Chorlton. So somebody's getting fired today. I'll probably be me. But there we go. So that is our league, and that is where we are. Congratulations, everybody. We have made it through another one, but we still need to check our games of the week. What are we really looking forward to this weekend? So, Big Johnny F.
I feel like I have to justify this decision, Barry. How awkward would it be for you to put the tier 3 table back on the tier 3 North table back on the screen?
I mean, it's not tremendously difficult.
There we go. There we go. I'm just going to stick this one on here. Just before anyone starts saying anything, I feel like I just have to get the table up first.
Is that what you wanted? So the Northern Premier?
That's exactly the one. So I haven't spoken about Halifax much. So I'm going to speak about Halifax. They're at home this week against a team that's below them in that league, in the relegation area. So it's a massive game for both teams. And I'm not allowed to talk about who Halifax are playing probably on this occasion, but maybe next week. But it is a massive game. We talk a lot about a lot of the games almost being a write-off for the bottom 4 in that league, and that this isn't a write-off. It's almost like a season decider already. It's not, but it could be when you can only get a maximum of 15 points, 18 points, but 3 of those points have already gone if you're in the bottom 3 against your rival 3. So yeah, Halifax against Stourbridge. It is a big game, so I'm mentioning it. It's a massive game, and Stourbridge will be looking to get an away point, if not 3 points in that game.
Like I say, it's a tight one, that. Absolutely. So, yes, I can see why you've chosen that one. Gareth, do you require a league, or are you capable of talking without visual aids?
No, I can talk without visual aids because I'm picking an FA Cup game.
Me too.
Mancunian Unity are a side on the rise. They've had, fantastic results for the last few seasons, flying up the leagues into the Northwest Regional Premier. And Wigan Athletic, ladies and girls, not the Wigan Athletic, they're a slightly different club this season. But Wigan are a side that are also flying through the leagues, a really good quality young squad, and they play each other in the FA Cup this weekend, which that competition feels surreal for me to be a part of. Like, it feels weird that on Sunday I'm going to go and be a part of a competition that Manchester United won at Wembley a few months ago. And if for whatever miracle reason we put a massive run together, we could get drawn against the WSL side. So it feels surreal for me to do that. So it must feel the same for the girls as well. And they are two sides that have flown through the leagues. And I think it would genuinely be a fantastic game, a really close game. And I look forward to seeing what happens there.
Indeed. Well, fair points. I too have chosen to go for an FA Cup game. And again, I'm stuck fairly close to home in the Eastern Region Women's Football League, because as ever, I try and look through all of the fixtures that are happening to see which ones are going to tickle me pickle in that respect. And this one, immediately, when I saw it, I went, there it is. That's the one. You're the winner. And it's a tight one. It's very good, because when you get the FA Cup at this point, even though it's still regionalised, you usually, at this point, second qualifying round, might see a tier 5 team playing tier 6 teams. That's generally what tends to occur here. But occasionally, once in a while, you get tier 5 against tier 5. Not a problem. But this one, it's a meaty one, a very meaty one. And it's got some very interesting connotations, because Haringey Borough have been doing really, really well up until this weekend, where they lost 4-1 to Watford Ladies Development, and that was at home for Haringey. So it's not something they would have expected to have done. Now, they were 3 points behind Royston Town, the team that are currently top of the Eastern Region Women's Football League, and they played Stevenage this weekend. It was a very tight game. We just narrowly lost 3-2. Good game, really enjoyable. And that's why I picked this game, because Haringey are third. They're on 9 points now, 6 points behind Royston, who won 5 out of 5. But for me, Royston have done incredibly well. Haringey have also done incredibly well. Yes, they've had a bit of a dodgy result. They're going to want to bounce back from that. But Royston are unbeaten so far this season. So for me, 2 tier 5 teams about to battle it out, right in the top echelons, in the top quarter of their league. That's a huge one. That's the sort of one where you'd be looking at in its league's table idea. It's a bit like seeing the likes of Man City against Liverpool. That's effectively, in our league, what this is like watching. So for me, really good. But just to touch on what Gareth said there as well, it's the money that you can get from this. The FA Cup is where you get more of a windfall. And Luton Town last year did incredibly well. I think they made it through to the third round. And the prize pot they got from that, I think it must have been about £30,000 to £40,000 at least that they get. And that doesn't seem like much, but that can be a budget for an entire year for your team. And if you're a bit lower down, you get even more from that. So it's a really, really lucrative competition. And I think that's another reason why, if you get the chance, go and watch a women's football match this season, especially in the FA Cup, because the gate receipts will matter as well. That's a really good time to go and support your local clubs, especially, because it will really give them a good opportunity to boost their gate receipts. And of course, you'll get the chance to see some really good, interesting, fun football. And there's no extra time up until, I think, possibly the first round proper. So good news, it'll go straight to penalties if it's a draw. So you haven't got to hang around for 30 minutes more if you want to get home for your Yorkshire puddings. All is well. There we go, boys. We've done it again. We've nailed it. It's taken us a little bit longer today than normal, but there was lots to talk about, even though there were fewer slides. Superb stuff. John, thank you very much. And Gareth, thank you very much as well. Thank you for watching in the chat. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. But until then, take care and see you next time.